Well, a wild week in Philadelphia sports continues. Today, the Philadelphia Eagles announced that they have signed defensive end Brandon Graham to a 3-year contract extension. And what a move that really is for a team that has so many questions to answer ahead of what could be a very tumultuous offseason. Now, I know we have the This Week in Philadelphia sports series where that's coming out on Sunday, so we'll talk all about Bryce Harper and Nick Foles and, of course, this move as well. But I wanted to just take a moment to actually focus on this move specifically because I feel like this could be a huge catalyst for the offseason that lies ahead. Brandon Graham was drafted by the Eagles back in 2010 and has kind of evaded the payday he's deserved for quite some time. If you think back to that final Chip Kelly season where he'd gone from being used as an outside linebacker back down to the defensive front, the team paid Vinny Curry. They extended the wrong defensive end in my opinion, obviously dramatically overpaid for him. Then Curry gets released because the team can't afford him anymore. 1 year later, again, Brandon Graham breaks out and this time around they paid Derek Barnett and they draft in the first round a defensive end. And all of a sudden, Brandon Graham sat there thinking, well, what do I do now? Then in 2017, he posts a 9.5 sack season, comes up with one of the most impressive plays in NFL history, the play that arguably decided Super Bowl 52, and there's still no payday. And he still has to play his contract year. So he comes up with a 4-sack season. He was slightly less productive in what was a very rotational year for Graham on the defensive line. And now the Eagles give him a 3-year deal. Now, if your name is Howie Roseman, I think you have played this very well because you've allowed Graham, knowing fully well that he's probably not going to amass that 9-sack season once more, just to let that value decline a little bit, especially when you look at the names in this current free agency class. Guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, guys like Ziggy Ansah, Jadeveon Clowney. There are some premier pass rushers here, and all it takes is one team to not place the franchise tag, and there's going to be a problem. And then the value of Brandon Graham, then the value of some of the other pass rushers in this class is going to expedite massively. So the Eagles strike first, which is a very common theme that you'll see here. We saw it with the Alshon Jeffrey signing a couple of years ago. We're seeing it replicated once more. The team, who are struggling for cap space as it is, absolutely cannot afford to let someone like Brandon Graham get away from them. In a worst case scenario, Brandon Graham will go to another team and would earn relatively similar sorts of money if he signed first. If he didn't, you're going to be looking then at 15 to 18 million a year, and that's something the Eagles just can't afford. God forbid teams start putting franchise tags elsewhere, then we're really going to start seeing some premier pass rushers paid like key players that they are. Since joining the Eagles in 2010, Brandon Graham has had 42 sacks. In fact, he's played in all 16 games in 6 of his last 7 seasons. He is as durable, as reliable, and as productive as the pass rusher comes, and to keep him in Philadelphia is absolutely instrumental. Not just for what lies ahead, not just for the stability along the defensive line, but for the future of it. Obviously, the contract itself is worth between $12 and $14 million per year. Now, I'm assuming a lot of that is going to be incentivized, and who can blame the Eagles for trying to backload a contract even further, given their current cap situation. This was an absolute must in terms of ticking a need off the list because it alleviates pressure. The team just received 2 compensatory draft picks for this year's draft, and when you look at how they can spend those, you can now afford to maybe pick up their extra running back. You can afford to fortify the trenches or bring in that extra tackle. Defensive end is a key position for this team, and bringing Brandon Graham back, there's no uncertainty. You know what you're going to get, you know where you stand, and I feel like, honestly, it just frees up those resources, it frees up those free agency resources, it frees up those draft assets to hit other key points of the team. You've got to remember here, okay, is that Jim Schwartz is in a situation where he loves that rotation, and there's a good chance he loses Chris Long in the next couple years. Michael Bennett may not be around in the next couple years. If you lose Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett becomes your instantaneous starter. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I love Derek Barnett personally. I do feel he can be one-dimensional at times though. He's flashy, he's not often as consistent as we'd like, and I don't think he'd be ready to take on that full-time starting role just yet. Maybe another year or two, absolutely, but as of right now, he's a great, I guess you could call it a change of pace defensive end. Like, sure, he had times where he started, but he'd have a tendency to disappear as games went on. By keeping Graham, you keep that rotation alive. It keeps the players fresh, it keeps the depth there, and put it this way, if you lose Brandon Graham, it's Derek Barnett, it's Josh Sweat, Chris Long and Michael Bennett. That's not going to be enough to get you through a season when you look back on how impactful Brandon Graham has been over these last few years. Now, I know this video is a little bit different, guys. As I said, it's not quite film analysis. We are going to have a podcast coming out later today that will break down absolutely everything from this move to the Nick Foles news to everything else in between. So please stick around for the Outside Insider. But I wanted to get a little reaction video up. If you enjoy this sort of stuff, please let me know. We want to try new things. Do you want to see more reaction videos? Do you want to see more analysis? All we want to do is make the best content for you guys possible. So if you enjoy this, leave a like, hit subscribe, and let me know how you're feeling that Brandon Graham, who's now been here since 2010, is going to be with the Eagles for 3 more years. From myself, Liam Jenkins, I'll see you later today for the Outside Insider podcast.